You all may or may not remember that my Big Bot Bash video was a week late, and that was actually because at the very end of working on that project, we had to say goodbye to my sweet boy. To be honest, it wasn't completely surprising because his health had been declining for the past few years, but it was of course completely devastating. He was almost 17, so he was really with me through absolutely everything, and I just still miss him so much every single day. I really do. But I want to believe that he is now very happily living in his own little Ghibli universe. Just like the one for my other cat a few years ago, we are going to design one for him. The one thing I can say with absolute certainty is that his favorite thing in the world was to eat, and his favorite food was fish. So I thought the place that he would be the happiest would be a fish market. I'm drawing inspiration from many different Ghibli films, but specifically Ponyo and Howl's Moving Castle. You all know what time it is, so this may look like a very normal butter cookie tin to most of you, because in many ways it is. It also is my favorite cookie tin that I have because of the lovely winter design. It is a very special tin for my most special boy. So of course we're starting with the interior.
What is the Krabby Patty secret formula?
A little bit of teal, a little bit of light blue, and a dash of white.
Your secret formula is finally mine!
So as always, we are starting with a circular piece of paperboard that I am painting light blue. We are going to be building lights into this project. I know I've done this many a time in past videos, but some of y'all might be joining us for the very first time, so that one flew. There's not a single miniature project where something doesn't fly across the room and I have to spend at least 10 minutes looking for it. I need to make sure that I make a hole in the back of the tin to thread the strand of lights through so that I can have the battery pack on the back. And then of course we need to hole punch our wall piece. What did you say about my technique? Oh, you're gonna pay for that one. I'm so sorry, I didn't sleep that much last night. L is for loser. I don't know why I'm making fun of the tin when I literally just said it's my favorite tin. I feel bad now. Please forgive me. All I want is to make you beautiful. All I ask is if this is my last night with you, let me turn you into a fish market. Oh goodness. This is gonna be a strange one, isn't it?
I haven't lost my mind quite yet.
As always, we're going to be dividing this tin up a little bit so that we have a flat base. So I'm cutting a cardboard platform for that, and that will later become a sidewalk. Inside of the shop, there is going to be a wooden floor. So of course, we gotta pull out our cereal boxes. I honestly don't know what I would do if I didn't eat cereal and pizza. So I'm painting that paperboard with wood texture and cutting it into strips, and then we can lay it on in a kind of floor pattern. And I'm also going to be putting on the bottom trim. I'm going to fill in the gaps between the floor and the back wall. Once that was dry, I could paint everything so that it matched. And then we start our very long journey of fish decals. There will be many a fish in this project. This is kind of going to be a little sign in the back. So I'm cutting this from paperboard and then painting it. Our palette for this project is going to be a lot of blue and teal, you know, fishing, beach, ocean vibe. And we're also gonna have a lot of reds, yellows, and oranges later as well. And I really just wanted this to be quite a graphic sign without too much dimension so that we can keep the width down and not have any issues when we're building the next layers after. However, I do want to raise it from the wall just a little bit, so I am adding some little foam pieces on the back. Now inside, of course, we need a menu for a lot of the different fish that are going to be in the shop. Not that my cat would be paying. Let's be honest, he runs this shop. Now inside, of course, there's going to be a small counter where they sell fish. So again, we're going to keep this counter as small as we can. I did paint this with a base white, so it will be a brighter silver. I'm adding in some plastic packaging for the glass window. And then inside, of course, we need fish. So I'm just painting this on paperboard. We have two sections in the case, so I'm going to be doing two different kinds of fish. I'm mostly doing bluefish because that's the biggest section, but we do also have have a couple of pink fish as well. Now the fish will be sitting on ice. I'm going to be using fast mache for this because it has a pretty good texture for it in my opinion. It's just a little bit lumpy and I think it'll look really nice as a bed of ice. I know a lot of you are probably not agreeing with me right now based on, well, this, but 1 fishy, 2 fishy, 5 fishy.
1, 2, 3.
I'm not gonna lie, pretty much all of this is gonna be covered by other things later, but you know what? It wouldn't be my video without it, I suppose. Another inside detail that I wanted to make is a clock. So I'm using the top of a milk bottle tab for the base of this. Just cut out a frame of paperboard as well that I painted silver and just can lay over top.
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
Then we just have to draw on the numbers and the face of the clock. And of course, put on some tiny hands, and then we have a finished clock. The last interior detail that I wanted to make was a bucket on the floor in the doorway. Taking some cardstock and making a pretty flattened, thin tube and then just painting it silver. And then I'm attaching a small piece of silver jewelry wire on for the handle. And then we had everything for the background layer done. So let's assemble that in there. Once all the interior was built, we can move on to the next layer. So we need to start with the exterior wall, which I am cutting from paperboard. Just cutting out the spots where the window and door will be. And then we're going to actually lay on the texture of the outside wall. So I wanted this to look a little bit like driftwood. So we need to paint some paperboard with various driftwood colors and cut strips to lay on overlapping up the wall. Once we had all of that on, we could frame out the doorways and windows so that the edges are a little bit nicer to look at. Now watch out, because we've got some extreme weathering coming in imminently. So I'm using some chalk pastel, of course, to add some dimension, shadows, and just make everything generally look more worn. And then I'm also going in to dry brush some lighter colors on the edges. Then we need to fill in the cardboard edges with paper mache mixture. Listen, I'm all out of joint compound, so we had to sub in the goat, what can I say? Then of course, we need to add some plastic packaging on for the window. And I also decided that this was the right time to put the bottom side panel in. I really should have done this earlier, but alas, I am stuck trying to slot it in the right place with some putty attached to it. I felt like some kind of bank vault thief in a silent film. Then I went ahead and attached the battery pack on the back. I threaded the lights through that hole at the top, and I attached about half of the strand of lights inside to light up the interior of the shop. The rest are going to thread outside, which I'm also going to be doing now since we are going to slot the exterior wall into its place, and that's really gonna lock everything in. Now the outside is going to be essentially like it's on a sidewalk. So I did cut out some cardboard squares to lay onto the bottom as a base, and then I went over top of that with paper mache mixture to add some kind of concrete-like texture and also blend in the ends of the cardboard so that you won't see them later. And then we can cover the outside face of the bottom panel. In the doorway, we are going to have a curtain hanging. I need to cut a piece of skewer and paint it kind of a dark brown for the curtain to hang from. This is in fact a piece from an actual curtain, so perhaps it's very fitting for this. I'm going to be making this mini curtain from a big curtain. I debated for a while if I should just glue this, but I simply couldn't help myself, so we're sewing this baby up. To be honest, I actually really like doing a little easy, low-stakes hand sewing once in a while. It's pretty relaxing and meditative for me. Sometimes in a project, it's not about what is the best way, it is about what is the way that will bring me the most joy while creating. I'm not gonna lie, I cut a thread that was just absurdly long, so this looks completely ridiculous, but that's the fun of it. And what shall the curtains say, my friends? Take a guess. is just gonna say fish. I mean, what else would it say, really? So I'm painting the character on as best as I can in white, and then I went around with a light blue outline to make it look cleaner and kind of a little bit more graphic as well. Then our curtain is complete, so we can thread that onto the skewer and put it into place in the doorway.
This door still doesn't fit right.
Now that the sidewalk has had ample time to dry, I am going to paint it with really just a lot of varying shades of gray. I'm starting with more of a mid-tone and then building up highlights and shadows on top of it. I'm also using a little bit of chalk pastel to add some grime and weathering because many a paw have traversed this sidewalk. And now there are many, many, many props to make. So I cut a piece from the other part of the milk bottle tab that I used earlier to make a small hook and painted all of that silver. There's gonna be a fish decoration above the window. I cut that shape from paperboard, and then I really just painted that to go with our whole color palette, painted the fins a little bit of a darker color. Now this is a fish market, so of course outside there has to be a bunch of different various containers of fish for sale. So the backmost layer of these are going to rest on top of a few crates. I'm making these again from paperboard, really just creating some simple boxes and then building up textures and trim on top of it. Then of course we just have to fill in the gaps and we can paint everything. And then I'm just going in to bring out some dimension with highlights and shadows, and of course going in with chalk pastel to weather as well. I also wanted to add some fun little details on the box, so I have a little this side up arrow, fragile symbols, things like that. We all know how fragile fish can be.
It looks kind of dead.
I'm going to make some small containers to sit on top of the crates, basically just 3 boxes. So much of what I do is just make small boxes from bigger boxes. And then we're just gonna add some fast mache for ice again, and then more fish. I'm using some round pieces of styrofoam to make some things that look a little bit like some kind of shellfish, perhaps.
You should never judge others by their looks.
I am also going to create some oyster shells, painting these all directly onto paperboard and then just laying them into the box. The final box is going to have shrimp, which I just painted again on paperboard. We're working in small spaces, so we have to keep it quite low profile. I am making a milk crate. This was a really fun piece of the project. So I just cut frame pieces for each side out of paperboard, and then I'm laying strips on top of that to make kind of the detail of the frame and just make it look a little bit cleaner as well. And then I'm using some scraps of window screen to make a mesh that looks a little bit like what you see on a milk crate. Then we can go ahead and paint everything teal, and then we can start putting the box together. Don't you love when you weigh down something in slightly the wrong spot and it just
I just got so emo, I fell apart.
I made a small round container to sit on top.
No, stop! Don't do it!
Don't mind me just, you know, changing my mind on the color palette and doing the same thing twice as per usual. On these fish, I decided to go in with some CT interference, which you may or may not see much of, but I do feel like it's just made for fish scales. It really has that kind of scaly metallic vibe. I'm also going to make a sort of barrel-like container to put some fish in as well, just using cardstock to form into a tube shape. And then I'm just going over top with paperboard strips to be some wood texture. Around the edges, I'm going to lay on some string. I painted it all a barely different brown and added some highlights, shadows, and weathering as always. And then I also made some salmon and I just painted them on paperboard again, like all of the other fish that I did. And then we need some signs for all of these containers so that we know what fish is in there. So I cut some leftover pieces of tea-dyed paper from my letter videos, and I just wrote the various characters on them and attached a tiny paperboard strip for a stick onto it and put it into the boxes. Now, like many cats, my cat was absolutely obsessed with cardboard boxes.
Oh, yeah. Cutie.
If there was a tiny box of any kind, especially if he couldn't even fit in it, he would be in it somehow. So of course we need to make a little cardboard box for him. I'm going to be folding one from cardstock. Quite ironic considering I make almost everything else in the project actually from cardboard, except for the cardboard box itself. So all of this is just in one big piece with some tabs, and then I just folded the sides and glued where all of the pieces came together. Then we can paint that to look like cardboard, and then I'm adding some details on the box as well, similarly to the crates. Then we get to cut a thin strip of masking tape to go down the middle of the box. I also created a small packing slip on a piece of paper, just cut it in half and then stuck it on either side of the top. And then we had a cute little box. I also cut a piece of straw.
Okay, I'm gonna try and keep hold of this.
And painted it silver for a small little water pipe that's gonna be coming out from the wall. I also added a little bit of hot glue dripping out of it. I went through my twig collection. I am, in fact, secretly a squirrel. And I found one that looked the most like a fishing pole. We have to make the grip on the bottom, of course. So I just wrapped some masking tape along the bottom. Then we can paint the twig and the tape to make it the right color scheme that I was going for and make it look a little bit older as well. I'm gonna use some super tiny crimp beads to thread the fishing line through. Now, some of you might recognize this necklace that I used pieces of from the Howl's bedroom miniature a while ago. We're gonna be using it again for the fishing reel. So I just painted it and then wrapped some thread around it. And then I just need to thread that up through the crimp beads and then attach the reel to the pole. Now we need a lure, of course. So I painted another tiny styrofoam ball piece, and then we're just gonna attach that on to the end of the thread. And we have a really cute fishing pole that I was really happy with. Our most recent Patreon project challenge theme was memory, which really encompasses this whole project. And we had some super fun and unique projects from everybody as always. So in that vein, the most important part of this project is of course making my sweet boy.
Aww. His name's Bailey. He's really cute. And he loves being pet and stuff. So, he's a kitty.
I feel you when the sun's warm, and when the breeze is gentle even through a storm. In your eyes is a quiet sea that ebbs and flows, always coming back to me. And with your gaze you led me home and made sure I was not alone.
We do it.
It's you and me under the stars and the moon and the galaxy, walking next to me. Who knows where we're going? Nowhere I'd rather be.
Why are you so cute? Look at you.
We'll walk along unknowing. Always want you in my arms, so you can be safe and warm. Together's where we're meant to be. Feels alright when you're next to me. So come close to me now. There's home in this house with you. You and me forever. Longer than a lifetime. Feel you when the sun is warm, and when the breeze is gentle even through a storm. In your eyes is a quiet sea that ebbs and flows, always coming back to me.
So cute.
And with your gaze you led me home and made sure I was not alone. it's you and me forever.
Love you so much, mister.
Some of you may remember that last time when I made my other cat's Ghibli build, I did sculpt a version of him. It went okay, but we're going to do some needle felting. I kind of feel like this might be a better option for me. Might live to regret saying that, but I got a couple of different things of wool roving. Obviously, we're going to be using the orange. I've heard that you can start off with polyfill, bulk up the middle of it, so I'm going to try to do that. This is kind of like an armature basically. I really haven't looked up much about needle felting at all, so let's not act like I am an expert at this because that is simply not the case. I've needle felted one time. This is what we're working with.
A platypus? Parry the platypus!
Listen, this is just the base. Then going over top of that with this garlic knot of light orange wool, really just trying to cover all of the polyfill. And I'm also checking at this time to make sure that the size of the cat will fit really well in the box. Okay, listen, it might not look like much, but we're getting somewhere. I can see the vision. Now, where the tricky part comes in is usually the eyes. So I'm using 2 more tiny styrofoam pieces and painting them green to look like his eyes, hopefully. Looks like the Lorax. And once those were on, I tried to overlap the wool around the eyes and just kind of blend them in. Then I'm gonna go in with a darker orange wool to add some of his color variation. This is very tricky because these are really, really small areas. I'm also adding some kind of striped areas on his tail as well. And then I'm gonna use some pink to try and make a super tiny nose. When you have really, really tiny pieces, they're a little bit harder to actually felt onto the whole piece. Why are the eyes always so scary? Of course, we need to add some whiskers on with white thread. And then I'm gonna also use some brown chalk pastel to darken some more really specific areas. On the hook that we made earlier, I'm going to have a little bucket hanging. So I'm just using a cardstock tube again and painting it silver. And then in this one, I poked some holes on each side with a pin and just used the silver jewelry wire again for the handle, threading each end into those little holes that I made. Now, we avoided sculpting on the cat, but we are actually sculpting a little this time. Although honestly, I feel kind of like a criminal calling it that. I just rolled out and cut some shapes to make little fishing buoys. I also threaded a piece of a matchstick into one of them. And then of course we just gotta cook those up so they're nice and tasty. And we can paint each one of them with some fun, different colors. Then I just did some simple weathering on them as well, added some number details, things like that, and then we can move on to the roof. Now we are trying to make a little blue and white awning. I started with a paperboard base to just get the shape. So I painted that white because we are going to be using tissue paper, and tissue paper is quite transparent. So I just cut some strips of blue and white tissue paper and laid them on in a striped pattern, and then we could lay the roof into the tin. I did also do a little scalloped side as well. And then once that was in, I know where I need to paint the sky above it. I did want to continue the awning on the inside so that if you look up into it, it doesn't look, you know, like a mess. This was very, very tricky because it was a very weird shape on the inside. And I also added some supports with some gray painted skewers. And then we are to these little fish lights that I wanted to make. Tissue paper, tissue paper.
Stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it.
Now the concept of these is pretty much like those kind of fish windsocks, but with lights in them. Now I'm making these quite similarly to the ones that I did in my Spirited Away food stall project, except just a little bit more fun, I think. So I'm cutting some fish shapes from colored tissue paper. I didn't have light blue or orange, so I tested a couple of different materials to color white tissue paper, and I decided that using the acrylic markers got the best and most even coverage. We're in some kind of Dr. Seuss novel situation here. One fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. I also cut and made a thin cardstock strip that I colored to match each fish. I glued each piece of tissue paper paper around the strip and just sandwich the two pieces together to make the fish. I also added some small pieces of tissue paper for fins on the front of them. And then I just went in with acrylic markers to create a lot of different details on the fish. Now, my cat was also obsessed with shoes. He loved to rub against them and he'd just sit on top of them. So, of course, we have to make some flip-flops. I'm just using some craft foam scrap pieces for the base and painted a light tan color. I'm using some painted brown cardstock for the straps because it's nice and easy to curve into the shape. Finally, of course, we have to weather even the shoes. So I added some wear marks onto the soles with chalk pastel. Now, of course, we have to put something on the outside of the bottom panel. Laid some dark brown wood strips of paperboard, dry brushing on some more worn wood texture colors. I'm going to put my cat with a fish in his mouth as kind of a mascot for the most delicious fish market. I'm just painting it on paperboard, again, like all of the other signs in the project. I also did the same thing with two different fish that are gonna go on either side. Now, one of the things that I had the most trouble deciding what to do with was either side of the walls on the exterior. I thought on one side I would add a little netted area. So I painted that side brown first, and then I'm laying some wood panel texture up the side.
Sweet potatoes for my sweet boy. Let's be honest, sweet potato is something that I probably would call him. Pretty much anything that was adorable and orange, I would call him that.
And then I'm using a netted sweet potato bag that I cut up over top of that. I am also using some of this netting and painting it more of a dark gray tone for above the door as well. On the other side of the tin, I'm going to put some various posters, and I'm really just trying to stick with the whole style of everything else. So I'm making a kind of tasty fish poster with some fun colors. Now, I didn't show this much in my previous project that I made for my other cat, but I did make a sign for that concept. Although if you want to see that being made, it is over on Patreon. So I really wanted to make a sign for the market with my cat's name on it. So I'm using a popsicle stick as the base of this, and I'm just cutting a fish shape from it. There can never be enough fish. And then I'm using my Dremel to carve out the sign letters and add some dimensional details to the sign as well. This was pretty simple. I didn't want to go too crazy because it's quite a small sign. The main part of the sign is going to be a dark brown, and then the letters get painted a light blue. Once we had all of those pieces ready, it was time for assembly. But we're not done yet. The final piece that we need to do is painting the outside of the tin. So what I'm gonna do is basically create a long landscape that kind of tells a story and perhaps shows more of the setting. So I started by painting some waves inspired by this Ponyo scene, and then we are going to have a dock and some sailboats on one end as well, probably going fishing for the market, of course. And I really just wanted to utilize a lot of fun colors and similar ones to tie into the rest of the project.
Doing the Chinese brush painting was good practice for this because I'm not drawing anything, I'm just going for it. I'm nervous about this, but I do feel slightly more confident than I think I would have had I not just done that project.
We're also gonna add some pretty giant fish. It's not a project on my channel if it's not just a little bit magical in some way. Giant fish is also probably my cat's dream because the more fish there is, the more for him to eat. Of course, I have some white little cresting wave caps. Now this one was just a little bit different than all the other cookie tin projects that I've done in the past because I really loved the winter forest scene on the outside of this tin. So instead of painting over the entirety of it, I wanted to find a way to incorporate it into the piece. As we move further along to the end of the water, we're going to have another dock and also a fishing village nestled in between two forest sections that were already there on the tin. So I drew some little wood houses, things similar in the style to the fish market building, and just kind of tie everything together as well as I can. There was a lot of starry sky already on the tin existing, so I'm really just trying to blend that starry sky with the rest of the starry sky that I'm going to be creating. And then of course, we are going to put the fish market near the other end of the docks. Now I thought some parts of the sky were just kind of empty and missing something, so I did add some constellations to make the sky just a little bit more magical. This is gonna be very small because of the scale, but of course I had to add my cat wandering through the forest, perhaps heading towards where the fish are. I did also go in with that gold again as well to add some little kind of sparkly bits. And then once we had that whole scene painted, I just had to cover it with Mod Podge to protect it. And then our project was complete. So here is Bailey's fish market. I really love this project. It reminds me of my boy so much. I just think he would be so happy here. Last time I made a project with my other cat, people did send me photos of their pets afterwards, and I enjoyed that so much. So if anybody wants to send me photos of their pet, especially their cats, please do.
I wonder if there are any cats around here.
Or if you've done a project for your pet, I would love to see that as well. But most importantly, give them just a little bit of extra love today from me. As always, we'll have some behind the scenes and additional crafting pieces in the bonus video over on Patreon if you're interested. Happy fall, and the next time I see you will be Halloween.